Toxic emissions from diesel cars are much worse than feared when temperatures fall below 18 degrees Celsius, it is claimed. This means using the cars on roads given the climate are a greater threat to human health and the environment. The problem is caused by engine management systems installed by manufacturers, which are designed to partially switch off emission controls when it gets cold outside. On the positive side, this protects the engine against extreme temperatures and boosts miles per gallon. However, at the same time, it leads to higher emissions that are linked to thousands of deaths in the UK every year. Successive governments have used the tax system to encourage families to use diesel cars on the back of claims they are better for the environment. Green campaigners and the motor industry insisted diesels were more fuel efficient and emitted less carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas, than petrol engines. Worryingly, these same diesels have been responsible for much higher emissions of toxic pollutants such as NOx and particulates. Now, NOx levels are so far above safe limits for human health in the UK that the EU is threatening to prosecute and impose multi-million-pound fines. The new claims come from testing company Emissions Analytics, which investigated 213 models across 31 manufacturers. It found a significant rise in toxic gas emissions from a wide range of models as the temperature drops below 18 degrees Celsius. Under European law, manufacturers are allowed to install engine management systems which alter emissions based on the outside temperature in order to protect components. But industry critics suggest car companies are taking advantage of the rule to switch things off, even in mild weather, because it improves the car's MPG. Emissions Analytics found a particular issue with diesel cars that comply with emission standards that came into effect in 2011, which are known as Euro 5. The average Euro 5 vehicle was 3.6 times over the legal limit for poisonous emissions when it was above 18 degrees Celsius. But that increased to 4.6 times over the limit when the air temperature dropped. Chief Executive Emissions Analytics, Nick Molden, said it was surprising that the temperature threshold used to partly turn off the emission controls was as high as 18 degrees Celsius, which is not extreme. He said there is a suspicion that millions of diesel cars on British roads are operating for most of the year with emission controls that are partly or totally switched off. I would say from the Euro 5 generation of cars, it's very widespread, from our data. Below that 18 degrees, many have higher emissions, he told the BBC. The suspicion is, to give the car better fuel economy. Experts checked a Euro 5 Range Rover Sport early on a cold morning, and then later in the day when it had warmed up. Its NOx levels nearly doubled when it was colder. Jaguar Land Rover said the car was engineered 10 years ago and had the best emissions equipment available at the time. It is not on sale anymore. The latest generation of Euro 6 cars, on sale from September last year, were better in the company's tests. They averaged 2.9 times the limit above 18 degrees Celsius, rising to 4.2 times the limit at lower temperatures. The higher figure was skewed by 3 especially bad performers, which have not been identified. Professor Ricardo Martinez-Botas from Imperial College London, the independent engineer overseeing the British tests, said he was shocked at the higher pollution levels on the real road compared to the lab. He is calling for car makers to be more open about what they do with temperature. They need to be clear as to what strategies are employed, he said. A Department for Transport said, the regulations are clear that temperature control devices can be justified to prevent engine damage, but we want to see action to ensure that manufacturers are only using these systems in limited circumstances. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders said all vehicles on the road have met legal standards. Its chief executive, Mike Hawes, stressed the engine management systems involved in controlling emissions are necessary to protect engine parts, which is good for customers. He said new tighter regulations on emissions, which will come into effect between 2017 and 2020, will remove the temperature issue.